They are everywhere, and they do pretty much everything, from knitting to bird watching, from book clubs to public safety. We call them creative citizens. You probably call them friends and neighbours. And though there's nothing new about most of these activities, there is something new about the tools available to the people involved. Today, half the adult population uses Facebook, increasingly on smartphones as well as on computer. Twitter is smaller but growing faster. There have been 65 million downloads of current WordPress open access blogging software. And though much social media use is simply for fun, it's also big business, a route to stardom, and more routinely, a way of responding to unmet civic and cultural needs. Our work seeks to understand how and where social media make a difference to creative and civic projects, so that we can help policymakers and others understand their value and so decide whether or how to invest in more of them. And we're studying 4 very different types of community in South Wales, Bristol, Birmingham and London. Our first area of study is community journalism.
We think there's kind of 600 to 700 hyperlocal websites, or at least that's how many have been defined by people who operate them. There's quite a diversity of practice though. I think by far the majority are operated by people who are non-professional journalists.
No, I'm not a journalist. I consider myself a gossip. I'm a school playground gossip. I'm a school playground gossip that gets involved in the PTA and makes things happen in the school, only I do it on a much bigger scale across a whole community.
One of the big news organisations closed down the Port Talbot Guardian and the Neath Guardian with a week's notice. There was 2 major towns in South Wales amounting to a population of 140,000 that no longer had any news provision. The magnet matters.
I think there's a realisation that the digital skills needed to do these are quite a low barrier to participation.
Everything we do is online first. If we'd have tried to create a monthly newsletter of the same kind of audience, 4,500 people on our Facebook page, 1,500 on Twitter, plus all our monthly readers on the website, how would we reach all those people with no budget?
Well, 10 years ago, when I first started as a journalist, I couldn't do what I do now. The internet was unrecognisable as it is today, and the tools such as WordPress and faster broadband speeds, that's enabled me to become a one-man band.
One of the big questions that our research needs to answer is whether hyperlocal community news can fill the gap left by the retreating commercial newspaper sector. Now, our research to date shows that in some ways it can. This news is very local in its orientation. It gives a real voice to members of the community. It treats politics very seriously. One thing that we have to address in the next phase of our research, though, is whether hyperlocal news can play that watchdog role.
Design and planning issues in communities is our second point of focus.
Ward's Corner is sort of an eclectic mix of local people, traders, residents, civic organisations. It's a real network of different sorts of people, and not just in terms of what groups they belong to, but also in diversity. From all over the world, you'll find someone who's part of Ward's Corner, different ages, who all has some sort of connection to the area, to the site. And I guess the main thing that brought them together is a sense of sort of injustice of what was happening to Ward's Corner.
Ward's Corner have been using videos as a way to engage more voices from the community around the demolition of the historic Ward's Corner market. They've also been using collaborative platforms built on wiki spaces, although there is a few core members from the community actually running and maintaining them. They have been quite successful.
Here tonight we have representatives from the entire Kentish Town community group. They come here to participate in our asset mapping workshop, where they will be mapping out the various assets that they consider to be important to their project, which is the Kentish Town Neighbourhood Plan. The Kentish Town Neighbourhood Forum project is in the centre. We have 3 circles. If you place something in the middle of the circle, it's really important to the project. It's something that's kind of crucial.
Creative citizens are people who are coming together to direct their creativity towards improving their local environment. And that might be a local building or public services or producing some sort of change in their environment.
In our third research study, we take 2 very different creative communities, one well established and formal, and the other highly informal.
My name is Vincent Baidu. I run an organisation called South Blessed, which is a community organisation based around visual media. So our online platform is a showcase for any visual media created within the southwest of England, comedy, documentaries, music. It's a complete open source network.
Listen, South Blessed, listen.
We just shot a video and it just went massive. It was just massive. A lot of people in Bristol saw it because I wasn't that known before, but a lot of people knew I was coming up, sort of thing. And then when that came out, it's just like, I'm in your face now. Vince is quite a humble person. He just does stuff for people, like the community as a whole. He wants to see the Bristol scene push forward quite a bit. Although there's a lot of channels in Bristol, media channels, he's the only one who doesn't just focus on the music. Like I remember he had a video of the riots.
I knew at the time that I had a responsibility to the people who were in the riots, to keep them safe in the way that I could by using the weapon that I had, which was a camera.
South Blessed is a really important part of the Creative Citizens project because it's an example of a network of people that are using some of the new media technologies that have become available in the last 10 years to become creatively engaged.
I think what Vince has been doing with South Blessed is really admirable because it's taken it beyond an individual media aspiration to actually turn it into much more of a platform, and that's not easy. There's not something that's necessarily easy to do, but you definitely see that people see a value in what he's doing because is that building they shall come kind of mentality, and people are using the platform really creatively.
Moseley Exchange is in the heart of Moseley in Birmingham. It's a former telephone exchange from the 1930s. We've taken it on over the last 12 years now and have been trying to turn it more into a community asset.
The Moseley Exchange is part of the Community Development Trust. It's a co-working space. Co-working is a bit of a new movement. It's really simple. Essentially, it's for people who perhaps don't want to work from home anymore, want to get out of their living rooms and would like a slightly more formal and professional space.
What is quite interesting is actually co-working is actually growing at the moment. There was very few co-working space in like 2 or 3 years ago, and now there is around 2,000 across the world. But very few research has been done trying to understand how those spaces linked to the digital revolution actually make use of social media.
We use social media extensively at Moseley Exchange. Clearly social media is excellent for just letting people know that we exist, getting them to find out about various activities here, maybe showing off what some of our co-workers are doing.
The extent to which things like Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook trigger real face-to-face interactions, they're very useful.
Outputs from our research have already made an impact. From Ofcom's understanding of hyperlocal journalism's potential and needs, to a new methodology for mapping community assets. In the next year, we'll be testing ideas for media interventions in communities that are co-designed with our research partners, as well as doing more surveys and interviews. The more we understand creative citizens and their work, the better we will all be able to increase its value. And the better we are at telling creative citizen stories, the more creative citizens will inspire.